Okay, today we'll go through this reactive forms and modules hands-on. Okay, now let me go here and here. So first step is basically we have to import this module into our feature module or the app module, right? So, but for now, for this session, we'll use app module. Okay. So instead of feature module, we use app module itself. Okay. So in app module, so what we have to do, we have to import the reactive forms module. Okay. We already have this one. So let me remove other modules which are not needed. Forms module also we don't need for now. The other three modules we need. So here we have our reactive forms module. Let me save it. So our first step is done. Okay. So the second step is we have to create this form group field in our component. Okay. So this is some feature component, but let me use the app component itself. Okay. So let's create that. Okay. I'm just copy pasting. And we have to import this from Angular. Okay. Angular forms. And let's go back. And then what we have to do, we have to initialize it. Okay. So initializing means we have to provide configuration for that form group. Okay. So where we can do that, we can either do it in constructor or we can do it in onInit method. Okay. Anywhere is fine. So we have to import form control. Then all the errors are gone. Now we have to have this form in our HTML, right? So HTML form, HTML template is empty here. So what we have to do, we have to create a form, HTML form. Okay. So let me take this and put it here. Okay. You can remove this. Let me format it. Okay. Now our form is ready. Okay. We go to our code. Then we can see this form. Okay. We have 4 fields and a send message button. Okay. So let me change the button color a bit. btn-primary. Okay. So this is our button. So when I click on it, basically it should print what data we have in this form. Okay. That is our expectation. Let me go to console by pressing F12. You click on console. So we are not printing anything. Okay. This is some random stuff coming from the Angular framework. Let me clean it up. And if I click on it, nothing is happening, right? So now what we can do is can go back here, and now actually both are bound. I mean this form in the code and this form in the template, these both are bound because we use this form group element contact form. So this contact form is nothing but this contact form variable. Okay. So here we initialize that contact form variable, and this contact form variable has these 4 fields, and same way this one has this 4 fields. Okay. 4 input fields: name, email, subject, and message. So now both are bound. Now what we have to do is we have to extract the data from this form, right? So that is our expectation. So this one, once we click on this button, we have to extract it. So now what we can do is we can basically write some method. Okay. Print the form. Okay. Print form, and what it will do is just print the console.log. Just it will print the data in that form. Okay. This dot contact form dot. So what we have to access, the value object we have to access. Okay. The value field. Let me save it. Now from somewhere we have to call this method, right? So from where we can call, we can go here and we can put a click event handler and we can call that method. Okay. So now let me remove this login and then click on it. Okay. So when I click on it, it is printing something, right? It's printing name, email, subject, and message. This is printing as a JSON. Okay. Currently all values are null. That's the reason it is printing everything is null. So okay, if I say if I type something and then click on it, now we can see the same data. Okay. Name field has 1, email field has 2, 3, and 4. Okay, the data can. And now this is coming as JSON. Okay, it is coming as a JSON object. So now we can basically send this JSON to the backend service, backend API. Okay, so this is how we can extract data from HTML forms using the ReactForms module. Okay, it is as simple as that. So earlier we had on submit ng submit, right? So that way also we can do. Instead of using the click event here, let me take out this and put it here. Okay, because this is type submit. So whenever you click on this, this submit event will be triggered and it will call this print form method. Okay, so basically here whether you have click event or on submit, right? So both are similar. So, okay, again it started printing the same data. Okay, so basically there is no difference here whether having the ng submit event handler or the click event handler. Okay, both are same. So basically what we did is we created a code version of our form and a template version of our form, and then we have the sync between these two. So whenever you do an event like click or submit, then you are handling that event and trying to extract data from this form using this contact form group variable. Okay, form group variable. Now this is one way, right? So how to have a default values. So yesterday we saw how to basically uh, have default values in the form. Okay, so here what we can do is this will take 2 parameters. The form control will take 2 parameters. So first one will be the value and second one will be validators. Okay, so let's say name will have John and email will be john@mrui.com. Subject is, let me say, not applicable, and message is please enter message. These are default values I want to display in my form when user opens that form. Okay, let me go back and see what is happening. Okay, see here the data is populated, right? So in the form the data is populated. So these are the default values which will come in the form when you assign here in the form control. Okay, and then if you want to have validators, you can basically use the validators, and we have many types of validations: email validation, max length, min length, null validator, required. So all these validators we can use. Okay, default validators. So I'm making now the name field as required field. Okay, so this must be provided, otherwise the form will not be valid. So now let me refresh and this data will come. So let me do one thing. Let me remove this because this is mandatory. This must have a value. Now this data is not coming. Another data is coming. We try to submit. It is printing name as empty and rest of the values as whatever I entered, like the default values. Now let's see this form is valid or not. Okay. So because we are providing validators here, there must be some validation happening in the background. So we have to see whether the whole form is valid or not. So how we can see that? In the print form itself, what we can do is we can print whether the form is valid or not. Okay, so we have a valid field in the form group, so we can print that. Let me print some string here. Form is valid. Okay, this will give the answer here. See here, it is saying form is not valid. Form valid is false. Okay, now let me enter something and again click on this. Now it will say form is valid. I mean form valid is true. Okay, so in this case the form is valid, and in this case form is not valid because the name field is mandatory but user did not provide in the first case, but in the second case some value is provided in the name field. That's the reason form validation was successful. Okay, so if I remove this and click on it again, it will say false. Okay, now based on this, what we can do is we can enable or disable this button, send message button. How we can do? So now we can take this. You should not use this in the template. Okay, so here we can say disabled. Okay, if form is valid, this will become true. Okay, so we should do the negation. In case of only invalid case, it must disable the form, not the valid cases. So see, the form is the button is disabled automatically. So what we added, we just added this directive equals the form is valid. Okay, we are adding negation because if it is valid, it will return true. So if we don't add this negation, in case of valid form, the form is the button will be disabled. That is not correct way, right? So basically, we should disable the form when it is not valid. Okay, so that's what we are doing here. So now if we go here, we can see the send button is already disabled. So how we can enable that? So we have to make the corrections in the form. So we have to add some data here. Okay, so the moment I started entering the value, it became enabled. Okay, now if I remove, this will be disabled. If I enter, this will be enabled. So once it is enabled, then only I'll be able to click. So once if I remove, even if I click also, nothing will happen because the form is disabled. The button is disabled. Okay. So so we did this and this, and then we provided default values, and then we added some validation, and then we saw how to disable and enable a form. Okay, so now we have to see the validations in depth. Okay, in the validations we have to show some errors. In case of errors, we must show that error in the form. Okay, that is a good practice for the user. Now how can we do that? So now here we provided the validators. Okay, for the name field only. Rest are almost same. For the name field, we provided these validators, and then we want to show whether that form the field is valid or not. Okay. Now what I can do is I can go here and enter this. Let me save. So here what I'm telling is get the contact form here and get the name field using the get method and check whether it is valid or invalid. Okay, if it is invalid, that means if the data is not provided, then it will become true, the entire thing. And if the form is touched, if that field is touched, if that field is touched, then only show. Okay, don't show when user sees that form for the first time. Okay, when user just try to enter some value there or clicks on that field, then only show that error. Okay, that validation error. Now let me go here and see, I'm not seeing anything. But if I start typing something, the button is enabled, and if I remove, the button is disabled, and it is showing the error. Please enter valid course name. Okay. So what should I print here? Instead of course name, I should print please enter valid name. Okay. So now if I enter something and then remove it, it will show enter valid name. Okay. That is one thing. Or if I click inside it and then click on the second field also, it will show the error message. Okay. Maybe you can change the font color to red. Color red. Okay, now it will show error message. Now, let's say if you have more validations, then what we can do? So the first parameter is directly associated with the field value, and the second parameter is validators, right? If you have more than one validator, then we have to make this an array. How we can make? Just add this square brackets around that of second parameter, then it will become an array. Okay. Now let me say validators dot. Let me use the min length. Okay. Min length has 10 characters. Okay. Now I have two validators. Now if I don't enter this data, then it will show enter valid name. Okay. If I let's say I enter data, but still this is not enabled. Okay. Because this form has two validations. One validation is success. Okay. The second validation is not success. It must cross 10 characters. Then only it will get enabled. Okay. If it is less than 10 characters, then it will show the error. But it is showing different error, right? It should show the field length is not 10 characters. Something like that should be displayed instead of please enter valid name. Let's go here and see. There is a problem here. So here we are using the generic error display. Okay, we are checking whether it is valid or invalid, and then we are checking whether it is touched, and then we are displaying by default the name, the validation of that. Instead, we should check and see if it is length related issue. Okay, then only show the length related thing. So what we can do, we can basically copy paste another copy for the same field for different error. Okay, please enter at least 10 characters. Now instead of checking just invalid, we don't know what kind of data it will hold, the errors. So let's print this and see. the JSON format. Let us say required true and please enter 10 characters. Okay, mean length. We should check for only required error to show this please enter, or we can say name is a mandatory field. This error we can show. In case of second case, in case of mean length error, we should show this one. Okay. Now I can. Okay, I think the L is small. As min length, if min length is present, then it should show some. Okay, min length and get touch. So now if I remove it, it's showing correct only. Name is mandatory field. And if I enter value, the min length the error is going for the mandatory validation, and then this one is coming. If I start entering more than 10 characters, this is becoming null. Okay, I think I know what's happening. First, we should check whether that is not null. Okay, sometimes errors is null in case of valid scenarios. That time it is throwing that error. So in the above here also, we should put that, and we should enclose it in the parentheses. Okay, if it is not null, then only check for the required. Here, check for the min length. This having errors, then okay, something wrong. add and is not working for some reason. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm checking whether it is null or not. Okay, so once all conditions are met, then this will become null. Okay, so what is that? The contact form dot get name dot errors. Basically, there are no errors. Null means there are no errors. Then if there are no errors, then it will become null. Okay, if it becomes null, then it should not. Okay. Forms template driven form validations. Okay, let's change the condition how we check. Okay. Just like template driven forms, we change it. Okay, first we will check whether it has errors. If it has errors, we will check whether it is dirty or touched. In that case, come to the condition and then check for these two conditions. If it has required error, then show this message. If it has mid-length error, then show this message. Sometimes this validation thing will behave very weirdly for some reason. Still it is showing that. Null. Not read properties of null. Reading required. Okay, got it. This should be somewhere down here. Okay, perfect. So the mistake was here, and the div was closing here itself in the same line. Okay, let me format it again. So now let me remove this. Okay, so now we have two validations. One is the name is mandatory field and it must have 10 characters at least, two validations, right? So if I enter something, the first validation is passed. Okay, the mandatory field check is passed, but it's showing the second error message. If I remove it, it is showing first error message. Okay, so let me start entering the same key. Okay, once 10 characters are done, then both errors are gone and now form is enabled. Okay, now if I click on the form, it will print the entire JSON. Okay, so that is how you can add the validations. Okay, so and we can show respective error message based on the respective validations. Okay, So I think we covered the validations as well. And apart from showing error messages here, okay, let me remove the disabled button. Okay, let's say in some scenarios we enable button in all the cases. So even the form is not valid, we enable this form. Okay, when I click on submit, it is printing this one, empty value. Now in the code also we can check whether that form is valid or not. Okay, so how we can check? We are already printing this is valid or not. We can basically do a if condition, this dot contact form dot valid is valid. I can say console.log form is valid. Otherwise, form is not valid. In case a valid form, I want to print the entire form. Otherwise, I don't want to print anything. Okay, if it is valid, it will print. Form is valid, and it will print the form also. Okay, so when I click on this, it is saying form is not valid because we did not enter any value in here. Okay, so it is a mandatory field. Now I started entering some value, but it's not 10 characters yet. Let me click on this. Again, it is printing. Same form is not valid. Okay, if I start typing more than 10 characters, the error is gone. If I submit, it is saying form is valid and it is printing entire form. Okay. Now we are done with this the form validation also. So we also done this disabling the button, right? So this is also done. So only thing we're left with is form events. Okay. So how we can basically listen to form events? We can basically listen to the value changes subscriber, the observable, or this is a form level, entire form level. If you want to listen to a specific field level, you can get that field and then listen to the same observer value changes. Okay. So where we can basically listen to observables mostly in on init method. Okay, now I can take this and let me listen on the entire form. Okay, we have value changes dot subscribe. So this subscribe returns us a JSON value. Okay, so I can say contact FM. Okay, now let's write the arrow function, and inside this I can say console.log. What we have to print? The contact FM. Save it. So let me open the console here. Let me clear it. If I start entering any single character for each time, it will call the subscriber. Okay, I just enter F, and if the entire form is printed. If I printed G, again the entire form is printed, and now it is having the FG. Okay, it will always have the latest snapshot of the form. Okay, so I can enter anything. That many times the entire form will be printed. Okay, so it started with F and then FG, FGF, and some junk data, whatever I entered here, and in each character entry, it printed the entire form. Okay, not only that field, you can pick any field. Okay, not only entering value, when you remove also, it will print. Okay, so this is how the observable will work. In order to listen to only a single observable, single field observable, you can say get, and in get, you can say name. Okay, so this name must be present in the form configuration, otherwise it will throw error. Now we are listening to any changes happening to only this one. Okay, let me remove this subscriber because it will confuse us. Okay, so now if I type anything in any other field, nothing will happen. But if I type something in here, it will print only the data. Okay, whenever it is whenever you enter anything. Okay, so now we are listening on only this event or this field. Yeah. So that is how you can either listen on the entire form or you can listen on single field. Okay, so any questions so far?
No, sir.
Oh, okay, cool. So now we are done with the React forms. Now let's move on to the modules. Okay, so now what we can do is we saw only app module, right, so far. So let's create a module by using the ng create or like ng generate command. Let me go here and let me create some feature module. Okay, let me call it we have already some examples, but let me create some module. Let me call it Apple module. Okay, ng generate module, and what module I want to create? Apple module. Okay, let me remove the module suffix because Angular will add suffixes, right? Let me create an Apple. So if you see, it created only one file, apple.module.ts in Apple folder. We scroll up, now here it created Apple folder, and inside it created Apple module.ts. Okay, if you open that, so there is nothing much, right? So it is just having the declaration sections and import sections, and we have TypeScript class. Okay, this is just a basic TypeScript. No, because we have it the ng module decorator here on top of this class. Now this will become an ng module. Now what we can do is we can basically create a component inside this module. Okay, so how we can create a component? Using the same ng generate C for component, and where we want to create in Apple folder. Okay, in Apple folder, and what is my component name? Welcome component. Okay, why I'm giving the Apple folder name here in before? Because when you create a component inside a module folder, then this component by default will become belongs to that module. Okay, here in this case it is Apple module. Now let's create that component. Just observe here, it created a welcome folder. So it created a in Apple folder, it created a welcome folder, and in the welcome folder, it created welcome component. Okay, so in welcome folder, what it created? It created 4 files. One is component file, and then is HTML, CSS, and spec file. Now, if you go to app module, it updated the app module also. Okay, instead of updating the app component, app module, it updated Apple module. Okay, if you open the Apple module, in the declaration section, it was empty earlier. Now it added welcome component. Okay, now that means the welcome component is now belongs to the Apple module, okay, not the app module. Okay, so now here I can say welcome to mrui.com. This is my greeting message, and I want to show in H3. Save it. Our module is created. If you go back and see in the browser, nothing will happen. It will show the same old screen which we used for the reactive forms. So how we can execute that welcome component? So in order to execute that welcome component, go here and open the routing module, and we have to import that module here. Okay, basically we have to uh, provide a configuration for that module. Okay, how we can provide a configuration for that module? We remove this. Let me remove all this. Okay, here what we can do is we cannot give like this. Okay, we cannot say some path here and then say component is that welcome component, because this component is belong to the app module, but the welcome component belongs to the Apple module. So these are completely like sibling modules, or basically we can say it's separate modules. Both are separate modules. Okay, not this one cannot be accessed. The welcome component cannot be accessed in the app module. So in order to make that usable, or in order to make it available for the routing module, what we can do is we can use the routing concept for modules. Okay, so instead of the component field here, we should use load children. Let me remove this component and use the load children property. So here what we have to do, we have to give the path Apple, and we have Apple.module. So now the error is gone. Okay, what we are saying is import the Apple module from Apple folder, and the module name is Apple.module. Okay, in there what we have Apple module, not the module one. Okay, now this is correct. I have to correct this little bit. Now here path I can say welcome. When user says welcome, then show this module. Okay, okay. So now you see here the Apple module is downloaded separately. Okay, it's not part of the these default files, main, vendor, and runtime poly files, right? So the Apple module is built separately and it is downloaded separately. Okay, and but here we don't see that module component, because we did not provide in this module which component to display by default, right? So that configuration we have to provide. So where we can provide basically inside the app module here itself, we have to create a routing file for this module. Okay, just like this, and then we can basically um, provide that routing configuration here. Okay, if empty path comes, then show the welcome component. Okay, so how we can do, so instead of basically creating a separate routing file, what we can do is, let me copy this and put it here. Let me import this, and when user says nothing, then by default show the welcome component. Welcome component. Okay. Now we have to use the routing module to provide support for the routing. Okay, the imports you can there router module dot for, let me import it, and then for child. Okay, so let me again, like I'll go through what I'm doing again, but so we are doing nothing here. We are just adding the routes configuration inside the app, the feature module. Okay, Apple module. Okay, here when we create Angular project, right? So by default this file is added, but we don't need this file basically. We can keep this inside the app component itself. In app module itself, we can copy this and we can copy this, and we don't have to have this entire file. We can delete this also. It will still work. Okay, same way, instead of creating a separate routing file for the welcome module, I mean the Apple module. So what I'm doing is, in the same Apple module file itself, I created list of routes, and I'm basically providing the routing configuration. So instead of router module dot for route, okay, here if you see, we are using for route method. So this is root level paths. But when it comes to the child modules, this must be for child. Okay, child routes. These are all child routes. Now if you go back and refresh, okay, we must have the router outlet here. We must have the router outlet, otherwise routes will not display. Okay, now when I navigate to welcome component, it is saying welcome to mrview.com. Okay, this is basically coming from the welcome component. Okay, welcome component is coming from the Apple module here. Okay, now let's do one thing then. In app component.html, no, in the routes, let's add one more route. Okay, let me say home. Component is home component. Okay, in case of empty also, go to the home component. Now let me say, let me remove this and hit enter. Now home component is coming. Okay, so in home component, let me add a link to navigate to the welcome component. So how can we do that? A router link, I can say welcome. Okay, now welcome component link is showing. If I click on this, it will go to the welcome component. But here is the magic, right? So if let's go to the network. Okay, So now we created a feature module using this configuration, and then we added routing configuration also. So while creating module, if you enter -hyphen routing, it will create that routing file. Okay, routing file like this app routing module, right? It will create apple routing.module.ts, but we didn't do that. So instead of creating a separate routing file, we added the routing related information itself in the app module, and then we imported all these routes in here using the for child method. Now the app routing module will have parent routes, and this will have the child routes specific to this apple module. Now we're done with this step. Okay, we created a feature module, and then now we configure the routes in the apple module file. Okay, and then so what we are doing is we are basically use this syntax, right? Load children syntax. This is basically a lazy loaded feature. If you use this syntax, that module will become lazy loaded. Lazy loaded means when you need that time only, that module file will be downloaded to the browser. Okay, yesterday we saw that, right? So now let me go to the network. So we are in the network. Let me click on this. Okay. Now, once I load the entire application, so basically it is downloading all these files. Okay, around 13 files it is downloading. If I click on now the welcome component, the Apple component is not downloaded. Apple module is not downloaded. Okay, that is separate module. So when I click on this link, now the request will go for the Apple module alone. Okay, separately. Okay, so now that will download. And now if I go back and click on it, it will not do anything because it is already downloaded, right? It will keep in the browser and it will be reused every time. Okay. Now let me refresh that again and let me demonstrate it. Okay, when I click on welcome component, only at that time the request will go. Otherwise, the request will not go. Okay. The same way, if you have student module, if you have departments module, if you have administrator module, you can have any number of modules, right? So all modules you don't have to load into the browser when you just open that application. Based on as you are working on the application, based on your requirement, if you click on student module related features, then that time student module will be downloaded freshly and executed in the browser. You go to the department section, only department related module will be downloaded and it will be executed in the browser. So that way, you don't have to download the entire application for the first time when you load the application. Okay, that will basically add some performance improvement to the application. So now let's create another module. Let me say orange module. Orange module, but let me add the routing. So earlier when we created the Apple module, it created only one file. What is apple.module.ts? Okay, that is this one. But when I created orange module, because I gave -hyphen routing, it basically created two files. Okay, one is orange routing module.ts and orange module.ts. In which folder? In orange folder. If you go to the orange folder here, so it created two files. This is the default file and this is the routing related file. Okay, so see here, it uses the for child automatically. Now instead of in Apple module, we used this root rights in the app module. Now we don't have to do that. Basically, you can basically take this and go to the orange routing module and just put it here. Okay, So we don't have welcome component here, but if you have that module, that component, you can basically import it here, and it will work just like that. Okay. So another thing is here. Okay, let me create the hello component here. Orange. Let me say hello. Okay, hello component. So it created a hello component and it updated orange module now. Okay, this component is now belongs to the orange module because in the declaration section we have here the hello component. Okay, now go here in the orange routing module, you can say hello module. Sorry, hello component. Okay. Now let's go to the main routing file. Okay, this is all like mother of all the routing files. Let me create another path. I can say this is a hello component. Okay, and or let me say apple path, orange path, and here orange, same thing, orange module. Okay, now let me go to the list. Well, let me go to the home component. Okay, home component. Home component here. Let me add roots for apple and for orange. Okay, apple module, orange module. Now it is showing two links. Okay, they're side by side. Let me just add some break statement here. Okay, now we have two modules. So now both are lazy loaded because we used this syntax, right? So we used that import syntax, this syntax. These two modules will become the lazy loaded modules now. So if you click on Apple module will be downloaded. If I click on orange module will be downloaded. Okay, so let me click on Apple module. So now the Apple module is downloaded. Now let me go back and click on the orange module. Okay, only orange module is downloaded. Okay, so now basically this 4 KB and this 5 KB is not added part of the first application. Okay, our first load. So this is coming only when you need it. Okay, when you click on that module. Okay, so this is how the modules will work. Okay, the feature modules will work. Okay, so any doubts so far?
No, sir.
Okay, so I want you to go through this video again and practice these examples. Then only you will be able to remember all this. Otherwise, you'll forget. Okay. So yeah, if you don't have any questions, I think we can close this session today. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.